Hello? Hello? Where am I? There I am. There we go. Alright. I am going to immediately give this link to some people, and then we'll get into the conversation du jour. Be right back. Alright, there we go. So yeah, I decided to live stream this one, so I may edit out this first little bit while I'm waiting for viewers in post. But for the moment, just hanging out. Yeah, like I say, the topic today is session zeros. As I said, hey Josh, how's it going? I mentioned to SHONNER, well, I mentioned in a video that was a response to SHONNER, and then SHONNER watched it, that I was like, I call the social contract session -1, what have you, I call that session 0. And then moved on. And SHONNER stopped me and was like, no, you can't just move on from that. I was like, okay. I was gonna just make it a video, but then I was like, no, I imagine this is something that so many different people have different ideas on that let's make this a live stream. Let's get some feedback from the ideas. So I'll talk about some of the things that I do during a session 0 and in general. I don't know what our goal is with the session 0. I wasn't really. This is part of why I didn't want to make this a pre-recorded video, because I have a feeling I'm going to ramble a lot on it. So session 0, basically, I've gotten all my players together. I've already sort of done the vetting, the social contract, in order to, see that, yeah, these are players that I either know already, or I'm willing to take a chance on. So let's get right into the details of what we're doing. Number one, do I want to run a campaign? Do I want to run a one-shot? I'm terrible at running one-shots. I usually run a one-shot as a sort of proof of concept of a campaign. So usually it's more, are we going to run a short campaign or are we going to run a longer-term campaign? Get all the scheduling stuff out of the way. What days is everybody free to do it? Okay, this day's good for all but one person. Hey, are you guys good for moving it so that this one person can play? Oh no, we can't do that. What have you? Get the scheduling out of the way. Usually, I'll have a bunch of different systems that I want to run and that people want to play. So I'll usually make a poll. Or I'll say in the session, hey, this is the kind of game we want to run. There's a lot of different systems to do that. I mean, if we're running fantasy, good lord, there's a million different systems. So we could go with the tried and true. I've run so many sessions of Pathfinder at this point, and I'm getting some system mastery over that, I would say. Or we could try something new and maybe have a couple of game mechanical hiccups here and there, but, see if a new system's cool. If we're, playing something where the system is setting, obviously if I'm running Shadowrun, I wouldn't run that setting in another game, and I wouldn't run, vice versa, I guess, is the same thing. I wouldn't run Shadowrun and not use the core setting, is what I'm trying to say there. Pathfinder, I love Galarian as a setting. I think it's really good. It has some bad, because there's been so many writers that have touched it, but I think like 90% of it I like. So usually I just think, is what this campaign, one shot, whatever, supposed to be is that something that Galarian absolutely doesn't support, or can we just shuck it into some continent country on, the core Pathfinder world, and then we don't have to spend time reflavoring archetypes? Because that's one of the great things about archetypes is they're flavored into the world. And so that's really cool. You almost immediately build your backstory just by, oh, I've picked, I would like to be an Armiger fighter. Okay, that means you're training to be a Hell Knight. Or maybe you were at some point training to be a Hell Knight. Let's figure out what that means. That immediately helps you build your character. And that's, of course, something we'll do in the session 0 as well. We'll look at what are you wanting to play? What are you wanting to play? I'll walk everybody through character creation if they've never made characters before in the system, or if they've, never made that particular kind of character before. How optimized are we being here? Are we are we building optimal characters? I played in a campaign a few years ago that was, what was it? It was set in an MMO. It was sort of like an inverse isekai, where all of the apocalypse happened and all of our characters' brains were downloaded to an hyper realistic MMO server as a last minute thing. So that was interesting because it was like, well, yeah, the DM told us, optimize your character, be like a totally obnoxious power gamer, because you would be. This is your life. So yeah, that was interesting. Are we just going for, are we going for sort of build whatever, go with something wacky that might not be super optimal or work super well? That sort of thing. Likewise, how lethal are we going to make this? Or are we making this more, take the superhero genre? Because that's high fantasy is basically a different flavor of superhero. Are we, like grimdark superheroes? More on, are we more on the side of, Punisher and, gosh, I don't know why I can't think of anything else right now. But, are people dying? Are we basically normal people? And there's a decent chance that we get shot and that's a long-lasting injury? Or is it more of a failing means a setback? A Deadpool, kind of, but I wouldn't say Deadpool's grim dark, because there is always that death can't really happen. Hey, Darren. But yeah, I mean that's a good example. Is death just a setback for this campaign, or is death that's the end? And I'll make a video later on dealing with like resurrection rules in high fantasy, because I have issues with them. I don't think mini games represent it in a super satisfying way one way or the other. Some games make it way too easy. Almost no games explain the in-world ramifications of people being able to resurrect people with like, oh, we have a single piece of their hair, or sometimes I don't even need that. And yeah, that's never explained. That's a topic for another video. We're gonna, in session 0, we're gonna tie characters into the world. Doesn't need to be a 30-page backstory. Again, another topic for another video. But, why is your character here? What are they doing? Do all the player characters know each other? Usually I would say yes. If no, though, we need like a compelling, we're probably going to start, in media res, get right into the action, get all these people that don't know each other to immediately have a reason to know each other, and if not trust each other with their lives, be in a convenient relationship. What's the goal of the campaign or the one-shot? What's the overarching goal, the goal of the party, if you like, and what are individual players' goals? Player characters' goals. The player's goal should be to roleplay and have fun, I suppose. I don't know. I don't know why you're here. As long as your goal as a player isn't to wreak havoc and destroy our session, then that one doesn't matter as much. Let's see, what else? House rules. House rules are really important. If you have a homebrew document, mine's getting long in the tooth at this point. God, it's like 10 pages. It's double spaced and bulleted, but still. What rules do you change? What classes or archetypes are banned? What of A, B, C, and D is changed? Working with your players on homebrewing stuff, just very short term, like, ooh, I really want to play this, but it's not, it really feels like I would lag behind. Can I play this? Can I add this? Can I just reskin that? Yeah, sure, whatever. We'll move on. Or, we'll try that, but it might not. We'll test it in the first session. If it feels too broken, then I'll dial it back. Let's see, what else we're doing in our session 0. Player characters' relations to each other, considering, most of the time they do know each other. Why do they know each other? Is it a professional relationship? Are they related by bloodline? Things like that. How are we going to handle downtime? Are we going to do downtime in sessions? Is downtime going to be in between sessions? And what do you mean by downtime? Well, are we going to do a bunch of shopping in character? Are we going to do a bunch of selling in character? Or are we going to do more, fade to black, buy whatever stuff you want in between sessions or on the break? What else? What else do we cover in a session 0? I was going to say tone, but I mean lethality is kind of, I don't want to just say baked in again. I don't know why that phrase is on the tip of my tongue. Probably because SHONNER mentioned it in the video, but, built in. If it's a super lethal campaign, well, I guess you could have a really funny, hyper lethal campaign, but I wouldn't run it in Pathfinder, and that comes with coming up with when you're meeting to have a session 0. Do you already have a premise for the game or the system? Because sometimes I really want to run Shadowrun. And I don't know I have no idea what the hell they're going to be doing. Let's find out. Okay, everybody build characters. Just build an interesting character for Shadowrun. And then we'll look at all these 4 characters and go, ooh, what if you're all doing this? And so we have this, we don't have a session. We're not role-playing, but we're having a sort of back and forth, I'll write some, I, the GM, assuming I'm the GM, because this is how I run session 0s, not how I act in session 0s, because everyone runs them a little differently, or a lot differently, for that matter. I'll propose, your character is a mechanic, and your character is a gun runner. Let's say you have a convenient relationship here. Isn't Flame Zombie a Yu-Gi-Oh card? Nate says. I'm going to call you Nate because I know you as Nate. Is it? The story behind this name is not very interesting. The story behind this name is when I signed up for my Xbox 360, it was the randomly, Flame Zombie and a number was the randomly generated Xbox Live name I got. And then I used that, it was like, oh, you need an email account. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll make a Hotmail, because it was 2006. So I'll make a Hotmail, and I'll just, what'll I be? I'll just be flamezombie@hotmail.com. I have my email that I actually look at. I do look at that one, but it's so old it gets so much spam mail, so you'll probably get filtered. And then I went to GameStop, and they always make you sign up for the cards. And I told them, oh, what's your email? Oh yeah, it's Flame Zombie. It's like, yes. The guy at the counter was like, oh, that's a cool name. And I was like, oh, thank God. Thank God he thinks it's cool. Because even when I was like 10, I was like, this is kind of a dumb name. But yeah. And so it's just stuck from then on. Xbox generated names should be how all babies are named. Yeah, I agree. Back on the topic of session zeros, though. What else do you do in a session zero? I think this might be end up being super short if we don't end up rambling way off topic. Actually, flawless rapier. Middle schoolers were cruel about it. I have a guess as to why, but I'm not going to violate TOS. I almost think working with players on their character before session zero can be helpful. Have everyone meet the characters, so to speak, then discuss the world and relationships. The game Hillfolk does something similar to that, where in your like session zero or whatever you call it, you create this sort of relationship diagram where it's like you're instead of classes you have like positions in the tribe. It's like you're the tribe chieftain, you're the herbalist or the medicine man. What is your relationship to the chieftain and vice versa? And it's like, I am the chieftain's son-in-law. So, okay, there we go. Cool. We've got a plot point. If the chieftain dies, now the medicine man. And then, what are you in the... Oh, I'm but a humble farmer. My relationship to the medicine man is he sold me a tonic that is not good. Okay, so now you have a baked-in interest to not allowing the medicine man to ascend to tribal chieftain. Yeah, I really like that system. I've never run that system, but I took a lot of inspiration from it in that sort of relationship. Yeah, Josh, it's pretty dry. It's like very low, almost non-fantasy. You play in Bronze Age Israel. Well, it'd be modern day Israel, so the Middle East. Yeah. I usually do it kind of the inverse. I talk about like what's our this is the kind of campaign I'm running. Let's build some characters, and then if we don't have time, then over the week we can talk about our characters and relationships and build them together. But yeah, it's where I'll help, if people already have, usually when I send out, a little notification to the Discord server or whatever, hey, I want to run this, gauging interest. Here you go. And people will all pretty much already have an idea of, ooh, it would be cool to make this character. I know I'm just hopelessly in love with Pathfinder, and I've got like a million backup characters that I've just, didn't end up dying enough times to use this character, so we'll just put them in a folder somewhere and pull them out at a later day, and all right, there we go. Ready for this campaign. So, they'll always have a decent... Darren writes, what do you do in a session zero if a player suggests something impossible or potentially very unfun for everyone else? Okay. I'm trying to think of a time when that happened. Let's say someone wants to play, they disagree with one of my house rules. They're like, oh man, but I really wanted to play a base summoner. Well, that's a pretty easy one, so maybe a bad example, but I would say, okay, well, an Unchained Summoner is really similar to that. So I would probably tell them, I would guide them towards things that are similar to what they want to do, but much more in the scope of being interesting. for the whole group, and not just, they're building some, we've all decided, hey, we're not going to try to super optimize our characters. And they're like, well, I want to do point buy. I don't want to roll my stats. I don't want to potentially get something bad. And it's like, well, tell you what, I'll let you roll 2 columns of stats and take the best result. Does that sound? Does that fulfill your power gaming needs? And if you roll just absolute NPC stats and everyone else has good stats, and you really don't want to play the underdog, okay, I'll let you re-roll them. But I'm not gonna sit here and let you re-roll until you've got all 18s, or until you've got no negative stats. Maybe we're running a grittier campaign, and it's like, I want you to all roll 3d6 down the line. And they're like, I don't really want to do that. I want to do point buy. I want to do, and it's like, well, okay, I'll make you a deal. Let's do 3d6. You can pick and choose wherever you want to put those stats, but I won't go further than that. And if you still don't like that, if you still want to play, you're probably missing the point of the tone if you're asking these questions. So, are you sure you still want to play in a gritty session, in a gritty campaign or one shot or whatever? Suggest something impossible. If it's straight up impossible, I don't know if I have been suggested something that's totally impossible. Because, I guess if they're the 10th or 9th player that wants to join a campaign, and I've said, no, I'm only going to run for 8 people, that's not technically impossible, but it is something I've said hard no to. Or if somebody says, run a high-level Pathfinder campaign, not a one-shot, a high-level Pathfinder campaign online, no, I'm not going to do that. Then, again, I would point them to, keep an ear out. I'm not going to stop running campaigns anytime soon. So sorry you couldn't join this one, but we'll run again in the future. If, they absolutely need it to be run online, then that's a damn sorry sort of thing. I guess that's the most impossible one for me, is you want a high-level Pathfinder campaign and you're running it only online. Nah. Nah is my response to that, So, just, as a GM, you just have to put your foot down, Played in a 5e game where my partner at the time really wanted to play a Tinkerbell-style fairy. Tiny, can't attack, but can't be hit. And we had a fight when the DM said no. Yeah, this is why you have to vet your players. That's an interesting point, Josh says. I think the vetting really depends on setting up expectations prior to agreeing to accept players. Yeah, absolutely. Let them know. In my session 0, what I expect is I expect input on what you would like the setting to be like, because I don't have an idea. What kind of we're not writing a plot here, but what kind of story do we want to generate here? Are we doing, murder mystery? Are we doing political intrigue? Are we doing, that brings me to another thing I do. Are we doing trying to emulate an action movie sort of thing, what have you? And then you can see red flags. You should get an eye. I think one of the best things that a tabletop RPG will train you for is seeing red flags in people pretty quickly. But yeah, I mean, if you've got people that are going to throw a fit over the tabletop game rulings, then that's where you don't negotiate with those people anymore, because you can tell immediately that they're... At the end of the day, are you playing a tabletop RPG where there are death rules and the death rules are not optional? Okay, well, see my most recent video on player agency. Your player agency is agreeing to play in that system or not agreeing to play in that system. So, like I mentioned before, if we agree to play in Shadowrun, I assume you've read through the rules, or I'm reading through, and I might, if it's a new system or if it's a system that I know is fairly complicated, I might be reading through, uh, I might be, explaining some of the rule, not reading through the whole rule book, but explaining, here's how the main mechanic works. Everybody got that. Here's what you need to know to play your character. All right, this sniper rifle does 9 damage. You've got 7 hit points. You don't gain hit points that easily in your physical damage boxes. Do the logic: if you get shot by this and you're not wearing armor, or they're using an armor-piercing bullet and it just goes through your armor, you're dead. That's that. You want to play that? If that person's like, yep, and there's no hesitation, great, right on. If they still go, oh, well, I don't know about that, then you can tell them, well, I'm not gonna, we've already decided we're running Shadowrun, so maybe it's not the system for you if you can't cope with that. I'll make a video on communicating balance because, right, it wouldn't be that fun to have a literal, like, invisible sniper sitting on a rooftop, 2 kilometers away. Just go, bink, you're dead. Do not pass go. Roll no dice. But, to communicate that, maybe you think you see a scope glint in a building a little ways away. Oh, get out of there. Let me think what else. Yeah. So with, I will usually have like a general vague thing on if I'm setting up a campaign and I don't know exactly what the campaign's going to focus on. I will have a sort of split of what do we want more of? Do we want more combat, more social, political intrigue, more exploration, world building sort of stuff? What of those 3 do we want to focus on? I don't think I've ever run anything that just completely leaves one of those out, but that will help, especially if you don't know what system you're going to be running yet, with like, oh, we want it to be a really combat focused system. We are basically going to be playing a war game on very small scale where we role play the characters that are in the war game. That's fine. I think that can be really cool, but it's going to be more, like it's going to be something like, John Wick or Commando, where there's like in your hour 30-minute runtime, there's maybe 15-20 minutes of story and dialogue, and then the rest of it is just straight action. It is all action all the time. That's fine, but we wouldn't be running let's see, Golden Sky Stories. We're not going to be running a system that has little to no combat mechanics in it, if that's the case, right? Likewise, if someone was like, I pretty much don't want combat at all, I want combat as like a last resort thing, only, we might be running something like, we might be running a system that's very rules light when it comes to combat, something where maybe you don't have a big, any game where half of the character sheet isn't dedicated to combat stats, right? I don't think I would run Pathfinder if you didn't want to run combat, right? Or any, D20 system, really. As far as exploration, I've kind of yet to find a system that does exploration super well in and of itself. I've always found that, like, games that exploration is really up to the world design and the setting more than the system, right? Because if you have the mechanics don't make the thing that you unveil about the world interesting. That thing needs to be interesting already, right? So yeah, I've always thought maybe that's a discussion. I don't think I could make a video on that. Hyperlight Drifter TTRPG does it well on paper, but I need to run more games. That's true, Darren. I think it's got an interesting mechanic for it, but it seems like it can run the risk of just randomly throwing out a thing, and then it's like, is the random thing interesting? Well, if it's pulling from a list of interesting things, right? So the mechanic can be interesting, but again, it doesn't help if it's pulling from a pool of uninteresting things, right? So that's one of those things at the end of the day. Whereas like combat, the mechanics can really carry, or really hinder a good bit of combat. 5e rules as written combat, I think, fucking sucks. And it sucks so much because almost all 5e sessions they're mostly combat, at least as far as you're using the game mechanics. So when it's like, I hit the unconscious guy for the 50th time and hope he finally dies. I'm not dead. Can we just like turn on the auto battle button and see what our health is at the end of this? Oh, it doesn't matter because I'm gonna sleep and I'm gonna wake up having shrugged off all of my arrow and fire and sword wounds, and it's just, there's no punch to it because of the mechanics. Whereas you have a game like the older Dungeons and Dragons systems, and it's like, oh, you slept, great, you're feeling a little better. There you go. There's immediate, roleplay ramification for things. Ooh, I don't just want to, haphazardly swing a sword around in combat. And, okay, I'm fine now. I'm never afraid of combat. Where it's like, even if we win, I'm gonna get friggin' stabbed. I don't want to get stabbed. It's the ultimate rule of a knife fight or any fight. You're fighting with your fists, expect to get punched. You're fighting with knives, expect to get stabbed. Yeah. And then social encounters, they always, they generate themselves as long as you have role players. So yeah, I think exploration is the one that's most dedicated to, it lives or dies by the prep and the how interesting the world is. Leaving some poignant silence for ideas to come. But yeah, on vetting players, I think session 0 you've already vet all your players. I didn't always do it that way, but I've had enough nightmares where you can like barely run even a session 0 because you just have a nightmare player there that's like totally distracted. They're on their phones. They're trying to share memes with everybody, and it's like, dude, I know that this person is not going to retain any of the rules that I'm trying to explain right now. They're just gonna completely they're just gonna completely go off on and then need to constantly be reminded, oh, what is this? And then they'll make these giant posts on Reddit where it's like, I don't like crunchy systems because I don't understand. And it's like, yeah, I bet half of those people, they don't understand the system because they just haven't, they don't pay attention to their GM trying to explain to them how the rules work. And so yeah, you definitely need to see, are they serious about being here, or are they just friggin' nerds with trying to find some people to be parasitic towards, because they have nothing better to do. I don't know. Yeah, because unfortunately, there's the hobby attracts a lot of people that, they don't actually want to play tabletop RPGs. It's just that they have been pushed out of every other hobby group in their area because nobody wants to deal with them. So you have to keep an eye out for those. Luckily, it's pretty easy too, though. I guess you'll rarely find like a sociopath or something that's really good at hiding their intentions, but I've been lucky and haven't found any of those, I don't think. Josh says, yeah, taking damage with no ramification just slays me. Yeah. Yeah, it's really dumb. I know there's like It's really weird to me because I know they got to sell a product. Obviously, they're businessmen, but the fact that the creators of the game have homebrew documents to me is just like, wait a minute, you make the game though. Why are you? And all of it's like, here's how to make combat more impactful. Here's how to make, here's like a hardcore supplement for fight. And it's like, so all of this is a problem, and it's like, I guess it's because most of their player base, they're used to playing modern video games. They're the people that are complaining about, Dark Souls not having an easy mode. They're the people complaining about Doom. Oh, Doom makes fun of me for picking the lowest difficulty. And it's like, dude, no one's forcing you to play Dark Souls. No one's forcing you to play Doom. No one's forcing you to play Dungeons and Dragons. No one's forcing you to play with, a certain set of rules. There's a reason all the, 8 billion systems and different video games are out there. It's so that, there's different things for different people. And, I should make a video on gatekeeping, because somebody responded to one of my comments in a SHONNER video where it's like, that's gatekeeping. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of what vetting players is. Vetting players is gatekeeping them from your table. I'm not telling them they can't play tabletops however they want, even if they don't roleplay. Even if they're just playing it as a glorified war game and, they're constantly stopping to look up rules questions in the middle of the thing. They don't know their character. They don't know their character sheet. Whatever. As long as you're not bringing it to my table, I don't care. So that's my sort of like, what am I trying to say? That's my like thing on gatekeeping. But, it's when on the larger scale, it's always the people that complain about gatekeeping that are the ones that want to get into everything and be like, oh, why don't you like how we're changing 5th edition? And it's like, well, 5th edition, or, Dungeons & Dragons from 4th edition to 5th edition to, 1 D&D, whatever. It's like, oh, you don't like this? And it's like, yeah, I don't like it, so I don't play it. If you want to play it, that's fine. It's, I don't like Burger King. I'm not asking Burger King to start making Big Macs because McDonald's already exists. I'm not asking 5e to be more like 3.5 because they already made 3.5. I don't understand Pathfinder 2nd edition because I already liked Pathfinder 1st edition. But Pathfinder 1st edition didn't stop existing. So I'm not going to ask, make 2nd edition more like Pathfinder 1st edition. It would be nice if they just kept developing 1st edition, but 1st edition got so much friggin' content for it already that it's kind of like, whatever. I mean, yeah, another thing, I always allow pretty much all supplements, but I'll mention to the other players, like, our other player, you guys fine with, Psionics Unleashed? The, like, second party, a lot of the writers for Pathfinder worked on third-party content, so it's, like, basically first-party quality. It's one of the things I love about Pathfinder. Probably a topic for a review. Everybody okay with psionics? I know some people hate psionics. We good with that? Because I'm good with it. Are we good with third-party content? Yeah, I'm good with third-party content. Just, run third-party content by me first so I can make sure it's not ridiculously overpowered. If it is, but it's a really interesting concept, we can work on it. We can do some homebrew stuff. But be prepared for me to just say no. I guess that's another answer for, Darren said, what do you do if something's just totally unfun? If a player wants to do something that's just totally unfun or, what else was your wording? Or impossible. Yeah, so just unfun. Oh my god. Popping everything. Yes, impossible. I'll say, hey, let's just say no kids. Josh, do you mean players? No child players or no child characters? Because I think depending on the tone of the campaign, you can have a child character, for sure. Um, just say no. Yeah, that's basically what I'm trying to say. Is like if you want to run some third party or some homebrew stuff, be prepared for me to just say no, and be prepared to accept me going, these are my changes. If you like them, you can use it. If you don't like them, pick something else. Kids are good. So they're just like adults, really. Unfortunately, you would think that's the goal. You get to be an adult, and we're all better people now. But no, yeah, I find kids you just have to run sort of the opposite way. You never have a problem with kids asking questions in sessions, but you have the opposite issue. The kids just do the thing. I stabbed the guy, and you look, and they're like, it's like, well, you didn't buy a knife. You don't have any. You have no gear on your character sheet. You didn't do any of the. What are you doing during our session 0? I asked if you needed you need any help with the character. Nah, I got it. Their character sheet is like blank. So I find kids you have to be a little more helicoptery, a little more make sure hey But even some adults, they're coming to tabletop RPGs from Skyrim or whatever. They have no social concept that there's 4 other people at the table. They just want to do whatever. You need to if you're with first time role players, you need to get it, or if you're with people coming from 5e, I treat them like first time role players. I just assume they haven't been role playing. Because I played with 5 different 5e groups, and none of them were role players before I showed up. Maybe occasionally they did some dialogue. They maybe did like 5% of a given session, but none of them role played combat. So combat was even drier than it should have been. And so explaining like, hey, we need to do this is what role play is. Are we good with that? And I haven't done that in a long time, and I think I'm going to do it tomorrow for my session because I realized there's a bunch of people who've missed I say like 2 or 3 people who have missed my session 0. Adding new people into a campaign, you have to remember they haven't been there for the session 0. You can, say all this stuff to them, but maybe you haven't built them into to the running world. So you have to do like another session 0. That's amazing. I'll have to remember that about 5e players. Yeah, Josh, it's not their fault, usually. Usually it's not their fault. It's that the game doesn't explain to them how to roleplay, right? I don't really think Pathfinder does either. It's just kind of like, yeah, you should have learned this at some point. I can't remember the last time I read a tabletop game book that explains to you how to roleplay. Like a system book, not like, there's a bunch of supplements. There's like, SHONNER's book on how to roleplay. There's a bunch of videos on YouTube, talking about games. Abe over there, his how to roleplay videos. There's a bunch of bad ones too, but you look in a book and it's like, role playing is this, and it's not what role playing is about. Or they like separate the game into phases. I think that's what most people do. It's like we have our social and political intrigue phase. That's what role play is to them, the social phase. And then we have the combat phase, and we have the dungeon delve phase. And so it takes up, yeah, and so it takes up 90%. I considered while I was designing my system, I didn't realize. I think I watched one of Shonner's video and I was like, "What the hell is this guy talking about?" He's just, he's just, trashing all. He cherry picked. He found, and then I kept watching and I was like, "Oh my god, no one knows how to role play. These people are uploading. If I will say there's like offhand, I want to upload some actual plays at some point, and." I would hold myself and my players to a higher standard. Let's cut the memes and the out of character. Just we don't have a ton of those, but when they happen, it's like I wouldn't want to upload that. That wouldn't make for good viewing, you know, all the in jokes and whatnot. Nobody on you know, on the YouTubes outside of our inner circle is gonna get this, so they're not even gonna find it funny. But it's like, oh no, that's not the exception, like it is at our table. That's the rule. They're doing like 90% out of character random comments to, you know, keep themselves awake from this dull ass 5e combat. But you know, and it's like he's right. But at first, when I was designing my book, I was like, oh, surely if you manage to find my little dinky ass system in the back corners of the internet, you know how to roleplay. And I was like, oh, maybe you don't though. Maybe I do need to, like, what is a role-playing game? Because, you know, yeah. Even if it's just some links to some videos or a Shonner's book on here, because, man, it's... Yeah, because I didn't have a session 0 for a lot of my players, and I noticed when I added 2 of them, I can tell they can be great role players. Because they are when they're talking to an NPC, or when there's an NPC nearby to talk, or they're talking to other player characters, they're phenomenal role players. But when they're trying to interact with the world, it's always just the, can I do this? Can I do that? And it's like, it's written on your character sheet. Of course you can do it. Yeah, don't ask me if you can roll knowledge. How many points you're level 18? You put 18 points into knowledge arcana? What if I said no? You know, and that's kind of the thing I'm gonna say tomorrow is just like, and knowledge is a weird thing. That was a failure on my part to explain how to use knowledge skills in a role-playing way. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Josh says it's pretty bad. I didn't realize it until Abraham was mentioning it, and I really started looking around. I was baffled. Yeah, same. I was like, okay, I've been in a few bad sessions, but I assume it's an exception to the rule. And then I played in some more, and I was like, okay, maybe this is just an issue with 5th edition, and it's a bunch of people who's like first time role playing, and they're not good at it yet. Because, you know, everybody, you know, most people's first system is 5th edition these days. So it's like, okay, maybe they've only played or run 1 or 2 sessions, and they haven't got it yet. Okay. And then I started looking, and I'm like, you claim you've been role playing for 20 years, and I'm 30 minutes into your actual play, and it's a lore dump, and the only things any of your like 5 players have said is made one out of character joke, and the rest of them are just sitting there, eyes glazed over, staring at the screen, and it's like, is this how bad it is? I've been living in a bubble. I've been living in a bubble, and the bubble has been popped, and I'm like, oh no. So I feel a duty to make videos showing how it's done. You know, I haven't uploaded anything that I've GM'd so far, but, you know, I've been playing in Abraham's Reminisce campaign, showing how, you know, 3 sessions, 1 character, 1 question was directly asked to the GM. 1. That's it. And, you know, I think part of that comes from, like, a fear of, like, I don't know the mechanics, so, I want to know all the mechanics before I decide on something that's going to get me killed. Here's a secret. There's a secret that's related to Session 0. The GM's going to change some rules. They're going to make rulings and you don't know it. We're going to have a thing where, bang, you get shot in the foot. Oh, it deals massive damage. It dealt over half your health. Alright? I'm going to make you make a fortitude save. Oh, okay. You're not dead, though. You're not dead. Oh, but the rules say, you know, you fail your fortitude save for massive damage, you just die. Yeah. But I think it's way more interesting if you just get your leg blown off. Ooh, isn't that interesting? Isn't that better than just straight up dying because this guy got a lucky crit on you at a fairly low level or whatever? I think so. So if you're, you know, that sort of helps players stop asking questions, right? When it's like, you don't know. You don't know what the hell I'm going to do. You've been playing with me for long enough. You can probably guess, you know, some of how I'm going to rule things, but just throw what you think you know about the rule set out the window, because the rule set doesn't constrain you. It tells you what you can do. It doesn't tell you what you cannot do. DM, I want to grapple this guy, but I don't have improved grapple. Is that okay? Yeah, of course it's okay. Ooh, I'm going to take an attack of opportunity, though. Never mind, DM. I want to... It's like, what does your character want to do, right? Do you want to grapple the guy? Okay, tell me. I want to try to grapple the guy to get his weapon out of his hand. Boom. All right, we're done with it. I'm going to give you fewer penalties for making the combat go fast, for being in your character, and I'll try to explain that in session zeros. I haven't had a session 0 with new players in a long time, so I haven't had to explain all this. But if I was, new players are coming in, I'm going to explain, hey, this is how I do things. The rules are there in a crunchy system, so that I don't have to make up as much stuff on the fly. But I'm still going to be making up stuff on the fly. And people use the term hand waving. I don't like hand waving, I don't like just going, we'll just ignore that rule. No, I like, the rule's there for a reason. Let's see if we can modify it. Like I just did with massive damage on the fly. Oh, you hit negative your con hit points, you're dead. Maybe I realize, we already said in session 0, this isn't meant to be a super grimdark or lethal campaign. Maybe you've hit 0. I'm not going to fudge the die and say, and you're actually at, negative 12 health and you need negative 13 to die. Ooh, isn't that lucky? And the players are doing some mental math and go, that's not their minimum damage, and they're totally taken out of the experience because you've started fudging dice. Oh, just go, your eyes go black. You see what you're pretty sure is an angel. And that's the last thing you remember for a while. There's a big gap in your memory. All of a sudden you wake up and you are missing vision. Totally. You realize you don't know how long you've been awake. Everything's just black now. And your death was not death. It was, you're blind now. Let's see how that goes. Because that can be way more interesting than dying in the first session. We're making characters for a campaign. You die in first session. Move on. So, this expectation that I'm not going to give you an exhaustive list of all of the rules of Pathfinder that I am going to play with on the fly. I'll give you my homebrew document and give you the expectation that I love Pathfinder, but in any crunchy system, somebody's going to make some rules that you think are dumb, that I think are dumb. And you have to remember rule 0, I'm going to be making rulings. I'm not going to be talking to you about them in the session. I'm going to try to avoid that, right? Darren, last session I ended up accidentally misreading something and going, sorry, can I not be punished for doing something, for taking a penalty to do nothing? Because that was effectively, I didn't realize that was an example of, the mechanics for this are so bad that I do need to break immersion a little bit here and go, sorry, my bad. But hopefully, 99% of the time, we can... I'm just going to run things. You're not even going to know that I'm changing the rules. And if you have a hint, please, another session 0 thing, I suppose, don't be that player. If you are confused on a ruling, this is something I say. If you know for certain this is the way that this thing should be ruled, you can take a second out of character to go, that should be a fortitude save, not a will save. And I go, oh, oops, you're totally right. Okay, back in the action. But if you're going to, DM, I don't think that's how that's run. And it's like, okay, why not? Well, looking up here on Quora, there's this, and this. And it's like, okay, we can do that after the session. Somebody's holding you at knife point, got a knife right to your throat. And you're like, can he, is that knife a light weapon? Can he use that while he's in a grapple? Hold on. I would like to, it's like, well, the guy slit your throat. You are playing your character. Rules lawyer all you want outside of the game, right? But while we're in the game, you are no longer, Joseph the rules lawyer. You are a man being held at knife point. The man being held at knife point. You know what I'm going to assume your turn is? Your turn is, don't you know that holding people at knife point is illegal? And then, if you're lucky, they were just mugging you and they're taking your money. Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. We're getting on an hour here. Getting on an hour. I don't think I'll run this for too much longer. Thank you, Darren and Josh, for having some thoughts to bounce off of. I'll let this run a little longer, perhaps, in case we got any interesting closing thoughts. Oh man, if SHONNER's VR to my 17-minute video was an hour and 17 minutes, what is that? What's that percentage-wise? 17 minutes, 60 divided 17. So 3.5 times 1. Okay, so then, SHONNER's response to this video, if he makes one, should be like, almost 4 hours. I don't know how he does it. I envy him. I envy him quite a bit for having that much time to make videos. Some of those videos, though, God, I don't know how he sits through some of those sessions. Oh, man. There was one even with his commentary that I literally could not sit through. It was a Pathfinder session that's probably part of it, is that I know how Pathfinder can be run well, and I was just like, oh my God, why are you breaking out a battle map for like 2 goblins in a hallway? And your battle map doesn't look good either. Like, oh my God, what is going on? But yeah, so the expectation that we're in for speed. We're in for roleplay. The rules are there to benefit the roleplay. I'm okay with the slow, crunchy tactical combat, We can imagine that, the combat's going by, oh, hey, Max. I'll hang on for a little bit here. We can imagine that the combat's going by, slow motion, the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes style. I'm okay with slow, crunchy combat, but what are our expectations for the campaign or the one shot? What are our expectations for the system? Is this system going to meet those expectations? Do your players all know each other? What's the tone of the campaign? Or what are we focusing on? Are we focused on combat? Are we focused on social intrigue? Are we focused on exploration? Something entirely different. If there's a pie in that trifecta that I've missed, let me know. Just joined, I'll have to reply later. Yeah, please do, Max. Or replay later. Yes, replay. The OSB behind me triggers me. Who the heck cut that? I have no idea. It was free from our university. The university was getting rid of some of the fencing club's supplies, and so I just yoinked them. Yeah, a little raggedy, but for free. Free wrestling mats, even for crappy wrestling mats, you're gonna pay like $500. So I was like, sure, absolutely. I'll try to move it. I'll try to get some stuff organized this weekend at this house and have a nicer background. I've got one bookshelf. I need to get some other bookshelves so I can get all my models and stuff set up. And hopefully be moved into another room. So yeah, that's, yes, free is good. Free is definitely good. But yeah, so that's basically what I cover in one shots. The GM Rule 0, I'm not going to I'm not going to take the liberties as I guess I'll explain some of my GMing style with the Session Zero as well. I'm not just going to take, total. I'm not going to completely take Rule Zero as a means to go, oh, you built the character with, this whole thing is that he's super tough and he's got a ton of con, he's got really high AC. Well, now there's, I haven't told you this, but there's going to be, guns just everywhere. Or you're fighting nothing but mages. They don't care about your armor. And just never let your character be interesting. Maybe if that's already the campaign setting is that there's a ton of wizards and you're going to be fighting a ton of wizards, then I suggest to them, hey, you're maybe building a character that's not going to work super well here, but I'll let them know, right? I'm also not going to use Session Zero to just be like, I think it would be narratively interesting if you died randomly right now for no reason. I think that would compel the rest of the party. So I have chosen you to die randomly. But how? No, the rules don't say. Well, Rule Zero. I get to make up stuff because I'm the GM. I'm not going to be doing that. But I'm also not going to be letting. I'm not just going to let the players win, right? Obviously. There shouldn't be. It's that tricky thing of your players aren't trying to win the game, but the characters are trying to win the game. They're trying to succeed at their goal. So the players need to be trying to drive their characters to succeed. And so in the Session Zero, I need to let them know I'm not your antagonist, but I'm going to be playing almost all of the antagonists. My player agency. Yeah. Let me win. It's the your character doesn't have agency. The bandit is coming to take away your character's agency by way of a big knife. What do you do? Yeah, so, I'm, you agree to play by the rules of this system, or not play. That's what we talk about in Session Zero. You like these? Okay, well, here, I'm going to use Session Zero to modify rules as they fit the logic, as they fit the situation, to some extent as they are narratively interesting. But, I'm not going to just... I'm not going to fudge dice. I'm not going to suddenly, if there's a giant dragon, and it's well informed that, yep, at the top of that mountain is an ancient dragon's roost, and the players go, we are going to go up the mountain to the ancient dragon's roost. I'm not going to go, are you sure you want to do that? You're only level 3. Maybe you'll have an NPC go up to them and go, hey, that's an ancient dragon, don't it? We can take him. Well, you're all probably going to die instantly, but it's not because I hand-waved it, it's because you went to go fight the ancient dragon that's at the... You went to go fight the late game world-building plot thread right off the bat, rather than seeing it as something to strive towards. So don't complain if you do something stupid, If you draw a sword in the middle of the town square and start trying to fight all of the guards, I'm usually playing people with a medieval sense of law, at least, even in a high fantasy game. They're not going to throw you in prison unless you assault, attempted murder, death. Lucky if you get a session, they'll probably just cut you down on the spot. So, that goes with tone, that goes with, what's the setting we're in, what kind of things, So, your player agency is, as I mentioned, deciding whether or not you want to do that, right? You, of course, are totally free to decide not to play in a campaign like that. That's your player agency. But, my GM agency is running the world as we have stated it's going to be run in the Session Zero. And as logic comes up. Well, I think that's about it. I don't want SHONNER to have to spend a whole work day making a response video to this. So, yeah, I think I've covered a lot. I'm sure I'm missing something about Session Zeros and how I run them in here. I may make more videos on it. I'll be making tons of it. I've got like a huge list of video ideas that I need to cover at some point. Tomorrow I probably won't be making a video unless I make one really late at night, because I'm running my Pathfinder campaign. So maybe I'll make a session report on that. I don't know how. That'll be interesting. A session report on a campaign that's been going for 4 years and nobody on the internet knows about. Ooh. Could be cool. Could be interesting. But yeah, I'll see you. Thanks for joining, everybody. Nate, Darren, Josh, Max. That was everybody, right? Yep, that was everybody. All right. And Caden. Caden's just shown up here right at the end of the stream. Sorry, but you're gonna have to rewatch the whole thing. I will force you to. Wow, he's shown up to immediately say bye. You too, Josh. Yeah, have a good one, Caden. Have a good one, everybody else. Thanks for joining.